All righty, and we are live. Let's just give it a moment. We're going to let this stream work. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. All righty. We are good to go. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us today. I let everybody know on a pretty short notice that we had a very big announcement for everybody, specifically in Canada, the Saskatchewan province, but what we're about to cover really does pertain to the entire world. So first and foremost, Patricia, thank you for being here today and giving us your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to give a little intro. We're going to keep today's video short. It's really just a message that we're broadcasting. I want to let everybody know that what we're covering today right here on this live show will not be posted after. I will post it on private platforms like Telegram where they can't take certain things down. But again, after this live stream is over, I will be downloading it, putting it on Telegram and sharing that link with all of you. You could find that at t.me/ just my name, Jason Yosef Shirka. It's going to be there. I'll share it with Patricia to share with all of her following and all of her people as well. So let me just give a little background as to why we're on this show right now and why we called for like an emergency broadcast, I would say, of what's going on for people to be aware of. The other day, Patricia and I were on a phone call just about 2 or 3 days ago, and Patricia was filling me in on just things that she received both through individuals that she knows and downloads that she got through that realm as well. And it all has to do with certain things that are coming to fruition in Canada, in the Saskatchewan province, certain things that are already enacted, by the way, that people are not necessarily aware of because they're not telling us about things that are being put forth. And the reason why this live stream is so important is because what's going to happen next if action is not taken can and will impact the entire world. This is starting in certain places around the world. It's not just Canada, but we're going to be speaking about Canada today because we do have a physical document that I will bring on screen and show you what that document actually says. But again, this is a message for the entire world, just showing how one place and other places as well are bringing certain tyrannical rules forth through the lens of emergency acts. And what happens next is the taking away of our liberties and our freedoms. So, Patricia, maybe I'll start with, I'll bring the document on. You can explain what it is a little bit. And when we get to that point, I'll read the important lines that are highlighted there as well. So I'm going to bring a document onto my screen right about now, just a moment. There we go. Do you guys see my screen?
I do, yeah. So this document was formerly known as the WARS Act. They conveniently just changed it since, you know, everything that's been going down. And it is very, very concerning because it was received and approved on September 13th in Saskatchewan. And it's come to my understanding that New York has just done the same thing. Wyoming has just done the same thing. Alberta and BC and New Brunswick is getting ready to do it as well. And what people don't understand is that this gives our government sweeping control of our lives in a way that we have never, ever thought we would ever see in our lifetime. And the fact that it's happening in such a lockstep approach, and it isn't just Canada, it's the US, it's Australia, it's happening everywhere, brings in the military. So what I believe they were pushing us to do is, you know, the nurses and the doctors that are standing up to the tyranny, and the police officers and the fire departments that are standing up, they're all getting rid of them. They will be fired, unpaid LOA. From my understanding, it just happened in New York where they fired over 400 doctors and nurses. And so who's going to take their jobs? Who's going to step in? Well, the military. This is what they want. They want full martial law. They want full control. And so this was their way of pushing us into a corner because they knew that there was going to be pushback. They knew that there was going to be people that stood up to this. and would rather lose their jobs or walk out because that's what their soul is telling them to do. That's what's telling them is right. And so this was their way of being able to bring in the military, and it's happening, people. It's happening. I was speaking to someone in BC that's by the ports, and she says the amount of military that is pouring in right now, she's like, you got to see it for yourself to believe it. And the problem is, it won't just be our military, you guys. This gives them the power to bring in other military from all over the world. If our own military is standing up to its own government, it makes me wonder, because back in, I think it was 2018, the Chinese military was caught training up here on a secret covert thing, and it leaked the news, and Trudeau got in trouble for that. But it makes me wonder, why were they here training in winter? Because of course they're going to do this, enact this in winter, which weakens us. No one wants to come outside in winter. It's cold outside, right? What are we going to do? We're reliant on all of our utilities, especially in the winter. We're reliant on a lot more in the winter to survive than in the summer. So I think it's rather fitting that they're doing this, of course, right as we go into winter. So you should read the
Yeah, I'm gonna read a few things for people over here. And by the way, this document will be being shared. Patricia has it, she'll share it. I'll share it myself on Telegram. You can find it on our website at Academy of DK in the free library in the resources section. You can download this, share it with absolutely everybody, because it's something that people have to know of what's going on. This is an actual government document, signed, the whole deal, and stamped. So it says, Province of Saskatchewan Minister's Order on September 13th, 2001, received from the clerk of the Executive Council. And among all these things that it says, Section 18.1 of the Emergency Planning Act provide in part as follows. And you guys can read all the points together, but I'd like to read some main points over here.
Well, hold on, Jason. I think that it's important that you do actually maybe read through all of it.
Okay, no problem.
Ones up here, like F, control or prohibit travel to and from any area in Saskatchewan.
No problem.
You won't be able to leave your block. There's going to be military checkpoints. That's what that means. So maybe you should read the whole thing.
Sure. So it says powers of minister in an emergency. 18.1. On the making of an emergency declaration or a renewal of an emergency declaration and during the emergency period, the minister may, and all these points, hear this, put into operation any emergency plan or program that the minister considers appropriate. Patricia, you can chime in at any point you want to add on top of what's being said. B, authorize or require a local authority to put into effect any emergency plan for the municipality. C, assume direction and control of the emergency response of a local authority. D, acquire or utilize any real or personal property that the minister considers necessary to prevent, combat, or alleviate the effects of an emergency. I urge you guys to read what that says again.
Yes. Yeah, that is scary. Acquire or utilize any real or personal property, meaning they can go into your home. They can take your property. No questions asked, no warrants, no nothing. No nothing. So that alone, that's huge, people. We got to be a little bit concerned about the amount of power this document gives them.
But before I continue, I do want to preface or emphasize something over here. What's being shared right now is not to induce fear on anybody. It's to acknowledge a reality so we can shift that reality. That's super important, because people can read this and be very fearful of what happens next. That's not the intention of myself or Patricia. The intention here is to make you all aware and to acknowledge what's going on in portions of the world, so we make sure that that doesn't spread to the rest of the world. Almost like saying, hey, listen, you have cancer in your leg. You know, you should know you have cancer in your leg so you can do something about it so the cancer doesn't spread to your heart. That's the intention of this live stream right now, just so everybody's aware. We'll continue with E. Authorize any qualified person to render aid of a type that the person is qualified to provide. F, control or prohibit travel to or from any area of Saskatchewan. That's pretty much another word for quarantine.
Well, no, that's checkpoints. Prohibit travel, meaning there's going to be military checkpoints everywhere.
G, provide for the restoration of essential facilities and the distribution of essential supplies. H, provide, maintain, and coordinate emergency medical, welfare, law enforcement, and other essential services in any part of Saskatchewan. I, and we highlighted these because these are the even more powerful ones. Cause the evacuation of persons and the removal of persons or livestock and any personal property from any area of Saskatchewan that is or may be affected by an emergency, and make arrangements for the adequate care and protection of those persons or livestock and of the personal property.
So just on that note, if you stop and think about that, Saskatchewan is full of farms, and it's a lot of where we get our meat, our milk, our eggs. We get a lot from Saskatchewan. So if they're saying that they have the right to go in there and destroy crops and livestock, that's disrupting the food chain. And then in the next one, where they say that, or a couple more down, where it says that they can fix prices for food and everything. What's really, really going on here? Is this really about the narrative that they're feeding us, or is there more? Anyways, okay.
I want to bring, J and K are huge of what it says there. J says authorize the entry into any building or on any land without warrant by any person in the course of implementing an emergency plan. And K says cause the demolition or removal of any trees, structures, or crops if the demolition or removal is necessary or appropriate in order to reach the scene of the emergency, to attempt to forestall its occurrence or to combat its progress. And I want to just emphasize and reiterate one word that keeps being repeated here, and that word is emergency. And if we go to even what was happening in the United States with emergency use authorization, again, they will make sure that this is claimed to be an emergency, but things are not an emergency if there's something to help it. And we all know at this point that there are many things to cure what's going on right now. There are many ways to get over this, and there is no so-called emergency. But this whole document and many others that will start coming out, I'm sure, are under the implication and assumption that there is an emergency. And that's one of the things that we have to start dissolving, in my opinion, from our awareness over here, to understand that there is no emergency. Are people getting sick? Absolutely. But there's a way to move past it. And that's what they don't want you to know, because if you did know that, there would be no emergency and none of this would be able to be brought forth. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, who deems it? Who is the person in charge of making these sort of decisions on what crops should stay and what crops should go and why? That's very scary. That's very scary.
As you continued by saying, which is another really good point on L, it says procure or fix prices for foods, clothing, fuel, equipment, medical supplies, or other essential supplies, and the use of any property, services, resources, or equipment within any part of Saskatchewan during the emergency period. Or cause information, this is another big one, cause information to be collected, used, or disclosed. Just think of what that means. It's words that we can't say on this platform right now. Cause information to be collected, used, or disclosed that the minister is satisfied is necessary to prevent, combat, or alleviate the effects of the emergency, and for no other purpose, aka whatever they want to do, because it's all under their discretion of what they choose as an emergency and what is necessary to so-called mitigate that emergency that wasn't an emergency to begin with. So I think that the rest, because it keeps going over here and it shows you who signed it and all that. If you guys want to read this in depth, again, we'll share it to all our people on our platforms. And this whole document in terms of page 1, page 2 together is also on the Academy platform, which is just on the free resources. You can share that with everybody as well. So again, this is being brought forth, and thank you so much, Patricia, for even bringing this to my attention, sharing this with me, and asking to make this a possibility to share with people, because this is huge. This is on paper. what they're telling you that they're doing. And there is no room for, oh, is it a conspiracy theory? It's not even a thought anymore. They're literally telling you. And this happened, what, 2 weeks ago at this point? So what happens next is huge. Patricia, can you continue by explaining what you believe is going to happen between October 8th to the 16th with people getting fired and what happens next?
Yeah, so Spirit showed me a few dates to be watching for. And I believe that between the 8th to the 16th, somewhere around there, that's when this big push is going to happen. And that's when I believe that a lot of nurses and doctors are going to be turfed. And that's when you're going to start to see the narrative change and say that, oh, we need the military to come in. We need the military to come in. Well, these doctors and nurses worked through this for the past 2 years, and they were the heroes, and now we're firing the heroes. Nothing makes sense. But it's a lockstep approach that's going to happen globally. And that's why we need to start beyond questioning the narrative. Questioning the narrative was about a year and a half ago. Wake up. Now it isn't about waking up. It's about, what are we going to do? It's happening. It is happening. As a Canadian, I never in my life would have thought that we could be moving towards martial law and having military on our streets or even in our hospitals. You know what I mean? And if the Canadian military isn't suffice, well, this document also says that they can bring in whatever military they want from governing countries. Mm-hmm. And so we need to really stand up and be aware of what's going on first and foremost, and like you said, this isn't about fear mongering by any means. It's about awareness, you guys. This isn't the time to bury our head in the sand any longer. There's a lot of people going, oh, you're conspiracy theorists, or, oh, that's not going to happen. It just did. I had this, not argument, but lively conversation with someone just this weekend where I said, well, Spirit showed me the military is going to be the doctors and the nurses and the doctors that we have, as well as fire and police are going to be military coming up. So around the middle, 8th to the 16th of October, then there's also something going down around October 26th. That was another date that Spirit showed me is not good. It just feels like there's either going to be more coming to light or another shift. It could be a hard lockdown that we're facing, it's really sad because 80 to 90% of the population has done exactly what was asked of them. And they're being punished now, because it really isn't about what they're telling us. And for anyone who even knows Bio 101, mm-hmm. you got to start questioning the science, their science, because it is everything that they're pumping out is actually even against high school biology. Like, it's crazy, and people believe it as truth. And then they sit in that space of fear. And right now is not a time to sit in a space of fear. It's a time to get our homes in order. Know who your people are. One of my girlfriends, she talks about how her and her son, because she's a single mom, she has an apocalyptic backpack in case she ever has to run to the hills. And I'm like, oh, I never even thought of that, but that's genius, just to be prepared. And that's the thing. Hopefully all of this is stopped before it goes even further down the road. But if it's not, we need to prepare and know. And the thing is that burying our head in the sand and saying it's not happening, that's not helping. That's how they're getting away with it.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Absolutely. For what it's worth, and this is just my feeling on it when it comes to 10/26, it's interesting that you say that date because numerically speaking as well, numerologically, that date is generally a really powerful date on the positive side of things. So I don't know what's going to happen on that day, but let's put it this way. There was a reason I was given 10/26 last year to post a really exposing documentary. That was a date that was given to me. I was part of an instruction posted on this date. So 10/26 is not, I know it is a very powerful date. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if anything's going to happen on that day, at least apparently to all of us. But just from the little experience that I have with that date, it was generally a really good date for exposure. But I guess time will tell. We'll see. We got close to a month to see what will happen. And of course, between the 8th and the 16th, I'm sure a lot's going to happen. Right now in New York, where I live, there's a bunch going on with people getting fired. And now they want to bring in
that's
the
what I
National
mean.
Guard. Yeah, it's huge.
Happening there too. And how ironic is it that it all happened on September 13th? Because
Yeah.
I heard Wyoming also was September 13th. New York was September 13th. BC was September 13th. So what's really going on here? Because none of this is really making the news. I found this out from one of the nurses here in where I live.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, okay, so what do we do? What do we do?
What do we do? That's the question. That's how I definitely wanted to bring it to a close through that question.
So I had the privilege of speaking with a judge about this, an active court judge. And she said, Patricia, a lot of what's going on right now is very illegal. It's against the Nuremberg Code. It's against international law, provincial law, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. She goes, we just need the people to start taking these institutions to court. She goes, get on one of those lawsuits. She said, because we as a judge, I have a duty to uphold the law and do what the law says, regardless of what a prime minister says, what anyone else says. If it goes to the courts, it will be shut down. We just need people to start hopping on and standing up. They're going to get away with it if we just continue to lay low and do nothing and expect someone else to come in and save the day. That's the problem with our mentality. We've been so, programmed with Walt Disney, where there's someone to come and save us. We are the saviors, you guys, every single one of us. Don't wait for someone to save you. Don't wait for someone to speak up. Use your voice. That's the biggest thing right now. And the thing is that that's going to look different for everyone. It might be an employer. It might be a family member that you need to stand up to. Just stand in your power and speak your truth. Speak your truth.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on and bringing this to our attention and our awareness. And anytime something else comes up, you can always call me and we'll make it happen.
Well, and that's why when you said, well, okay, I know our schedules are a little busy. Let's do. I'm like, no, Spirit said no.
Yeah. I called, for the record, I called Patricia yesterday back and I'm like, when do you want to go live? She's like, tomorrow. I'm like, tomorrow. She's like, tomorrow, let's go. I'm like, no problem.
Have to.
So we did.
People need to know. So thank you. God
thank
bless
you. Thank you. Patricia, I'm going to send you this actual file so you could share it wherever you want. This file will go on Telegram as well for anybody that wants to share it. We do have other platforms coming out soon that are going to be able to not have this problem where we can broadcast and share without any of this nonsense. So stay in the loop. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for being here. Share this with everybody, especially in Saskatchewan and Canada as a whole, and with anybody in the world, because this is the beginning of something that we could stop before it gets terrible. So again, Patricia, we love you. Thank you. And we'll do this again soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right.